They say the youngest child is either the favorite or the forgotten. I used to think I was the latter, but over the years, I've realized it's worse than that. I wasn't forgotten. I was ignored on purpose. My name is Eric. I'm 31. And this story starts with a forkful of vanilla cake and a laugh I didn't mean. My parents had their 50th wedding anniversary 3 months ago. It was this big, over-the-top celebration at a rented banquet hall. White tablecloths, gold chairs, a string quartet, the works. My sister, of course, planned it all. Lydia's the oldest, 42, and she's always been the golden child, organized, responsible, married with 3 kids, the one who sends thank you cards and hosts Thanksgiving dinner. Then there's Adam, 38, the middle child and my older brother, who always got to be the funny one, the rebel-turned-family man. He owns a car dealership now, makes 6 figures, and gets away with not calling mom for months at a time because he's just so busy. Then there's me. I'm the artist of the family, or at least that's the label they gave me in high school when I started filming short skits with my friends and editing them on an old laptop. I turned it into a career eventually, freelance video editing, shooting small business ads, weddings, some YouTube work on the side. I love it, even if it's not flashy. But to my family, I might as well be unemployed. Every family gathering includes some variation of, "Are you still doing those little videos?" from my aunts, or "Have you ever thought about getting a real job?" from my mom. I used to try and explain what I did, but it always felt like talking to a wall. So eventually, I just smiled and let them believe what they wanted. The night of the anniversary, I showed up a little late. I had a client call that ran over, and traffic wasn't on my side. When I walked in, nobody noticed right away, not unusual, but I found my seat and settled in. I wore a navy suit, clean-shaven, gift in hand. I'd even made a short anniversary tribute video for my parents. Photos from their wedding day, old VHS clips I digitized, messages from friends and family stitched together with some soft piano music. It was playing on loop on a screen near the dessert table, but no one seemed to know who had made it. Dinner passed with the usual chit-chat. Lydia sat at the head table with her husband and their kids, holding court like she always did. Adam was 2 seats down from me, joking with Uncle Ron about football. I tried to make small talk, but it always felt like swimming upstream. They talked about vacations, promotions, Lydia's oldest getting into Stanford. When I mentioned a recent project I'd edited for a documentary team, Lydia nodded vaguely and changed the subject. That's when it hit me. These people don't ask me questions. They just wait for me to stop talking. After the meal, there were speeches. Lydia went first. She took the mic, beamed her practiced smile, and thanked everyone for coming. Then she turned to my parents and said, "You raised 3 amazing kids, each so different and unique. Thank you for always supporting us and for teaching us the meaning of love and family." So far, nothing too surprising. Then she added, "To Adam, for always being the rock, the one we can count on to fix anything, from a broken faucet to a broken heart. And to me, I guess for being the planner, the worrier, the one who remembers birthdays and bakes cookies at 2 a.m. The crowd chuckled. I waited for the last name in the trio. It never came. "That's all," she said sweetly. "To every child who's made this family what it is. Every child. Not every sibling. Not every name. Just every child. Generic. Vague. Dismissive." I stared at my fork, waiting for the heat in my face to fade. Maybe she forgot? No. Lydia doesn't forget things. She's the kind of person who puts dental cleanings in her calendar 6 months out. She did it on purpose. I laughed quietly, a short puff through my nose. Not because it was funny, but because it was so absurd. Adam stood next, raised his glass. "Here's to the ones who always showed up when it mattered." His eyes swept the room, but never stopped on me. Not even a glance. The words were casual. Too casual. But pointed. Like a knife slid under the ribcage with a smile. I clinked my glass to the toast anyway. Pretended I didn't feel that sting under my collar. That's the game I've learned to play. If you flinch, they win. The rest of the night moved in a blur. The slideshow played again. People laughed at the old clips, clapped during the speeches, cried at the love story. Nobody mentioned the video's creator. My parents didn't bring it up. Maybe they assumed Lydia had made it. When the cake came out, I stood near the back of the room, plate in hand, smiling at people who passed me like a wall. I looked at my parents, standing arm in arm in front of their cake, faces glowing from the candlelight. Then I looked at Lydia and Adam, flanking them on either side like a family portrait. And I thought, if I walked out right now, would anyone even notice? So I did. I left. I tossed my plate, grabbed my coat, and slipped out the side door without saying goodbye. It was raining, light, misty, cold. I stood by my car for a few seconds, letting it soak into my shoulders. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I wasn't even hurt. I just felt erased, like I'd been scrubbed out of my own story. 3 days passed. No one called. No one texted. Not even to ask why I left early. That's when it turned. That's when the sadness calcified into something else. I replayed Lydia's speech in my head like a broken record, word by word. Then Adam's toast. Then my parents' silence. That's when the idea came. I opened my editing software, dragged a blank timeline to the screen, and titled the project, "Here's to the Ones Who Always Showed Up." And as the timeline slowly filled, frame by frame, I knew exactly what I was going to do with it. But I'll get to that. Let's go back a bit. Let me show you how this family dynamic became what it is. Because this didn't start at the anniversary party. That was just the final straw. The last smirk. The last skipped name. No. If you really want to understand why I made that video, why it made them all stop smiling, you need to see what came before. And trust me, it's worth the wait. Like most things in this family, it started way before the party. It built slowly, layer after layer, like water dripping on stone until the whole thing cracks. You don't notice it at first. You excuse it. You tell yourself it's just the way they are. But one day, you stop making excuses, and all that built-up silence turns into fuel. I'm the youngest of 3, born 10 years after Lydia and 7 after Adam. I used to think I was an accident until I overheard my mom on the phone once telling her cousin, Eric was our little surprise. Surprise always sounded better than mistake, so I clung to that. Still, being the youngest in a family where the older two basically raised the bar sky-high meant I was always behind. Lydia was the straight-A student with a glittering college resume. Adam was the high school quarterback who somehow made even detention seem charming. And me? I drew cartoons in the margins of my homework and made stop-motion videos with action figures. That wasn't productive. That wasn't something you could brag about at church. I can't tell you how many times I heard some version of, "Why can't you be more like your brother?" Or "Lydia never gave us this much trouble." I didn't even do anything wrong. I just wasn't them. When I was 16, I won second place in a national short film competition. I was over the moon. I remember running into the kitchen, holding the award certificate like it was gold. My dad barely looked up from the paper. "Is there prize money?" he asked. There wasn't. Well, maybe next time. Lydia had gotten a standing ovation for baking a pie for the church fundraiser the week before. I think they still bring that up every Thanksgiving. But I kept at it. I worked through college, took every editing gig I could get, and even moved back home for a year to save money after graduation. That's when things really started to rot. Lydia was already married by then, living in the suburbs, and Adam had just bought his first home with his fiancée. They both came over for dinner every Sunday, without fail. And every Sunday, the script was the same. Lydia would bring a dessert and talk about her kids' school projects or her husband's latest work trip. Adam would boast about his sales numbers or show off photos of the new grill he bought. And me? I'd mention a project I was working on and get a polite nod from Mom, followed by a pivot back to Lydia's casserole recipe. Sometimes I wondered if I could confess to robbing a bank and no one would flinch, unless it meant I could finally afford a real job. But the real turning point came after my dad's health scare 2 years ago. He had a minor stroke. Thankfully, it wasn't debilitating, but it scared us all. Lydia and Adam rushed in like saviors, calling hospitals, talking to doctors, asking questions. I stayed at the house. I was the one who made sure he got to appointments, took his blood pressure, walked with him every morning, and made his low-sodium meals. I was freelancing, so I could work remotely, which meant they all expected me to pitch in a little more. I didn't mind. He's my dad. I just figured we were all doing what we could. But then Lydia started calling every night to check in. Not with me. With Mom. Asking how things were going, offering suggestions for physical therapists, recommending vitamins. And slowly, they started acting like she was the one keeping the ship afloat. Mom would say things like, "Thank goodness Lydia is so organized," while I stood next to her folding Dad's laundry. I could have screamed. When he got better, the family threw him a recovery dinner. Lydia made a speech again. She loved speeches. She thanked Adam for visiting Dad in the hospital and for bringing some much-needed humor, and then said, And of course, I tried to help from afar, but you know, kids and work. Then she gestured toward me and said, and Eric was here too. Probably watched some movies with him, right? I didn't correct her. I just excused myself, sat on the porch, and counted the minutes until I could leave without being scolded for not staying long enough. Still, I kept showing up. Birthdays, holidays, baby showers. I was there. I helped set up. I brought gifts. I took photos and videos for free. And I never said a word when people said things like, "It's so great that Lydia documents everything," while holding a photo I had taken. That kind of silence became a second skin. You wear it long enough, and you forget what it's like to speak up. But the betrayal, the one that broke something I can't rebuild, came last Christmas. It was at Lydia's house, of course. Perfectly decorated. Matching stockings. Martha Stewart vibes. I had wrapped my gifts carefully, labeled them neatly, and brought a bottle of wine I couldn't really afford. When I arrived, my name wasn't on the seating chart for dinner. "Oh, sorry," Lydia said. "I must have forgotten to print that one. You don't mind squeezing in at the kids' table, right?" I laughed it off, sat with my nieces and nephews, and tried to make it fun. I joked about Santa and made them laugh. They love me, the kids. Maybe because I listen. Maybe because I don't talk over them like the adults do to me. After dinner, we did the gift exchange. Everyone opened their presents in a big circle in the living room. Adam got a new smartwatch from Mom and Dad. Lydia got a designer bag. Her kids got tablets and Lego sets. I opened mine and found socks. Not even funny ones. Just regular, black, department store socks. There wasn't a note. I glanced at my mom. She smiled at me like nothing was wrong. Like it wasn't a slap in the face. "We figured you could use something practical." That would have been enough to sting, but I could have moved on. I've gotten socks before. I've gotten less. Then Lydia's husband said something that shifted everything. He was looking at the gifts, joking around, and said, "Man, we really went all out this year. Everyone got spoiled. Well, except Eric. Someone must have been naughty this year." Everyone laughed. Not cruelly. Just like it was normal. Like I was the family punchline. The invisible one. I felt something crack right then. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just sat there, staring at those socks in my lap, and realized I wasn't part of this family. Not really. I was a prop. The background character in the movie of their lives. The final nail in the coffin came 2 weeks later. I found out, by accident, that my parents had opened a family trust. Lydia and Adam were listed as beneficiaries. I wasn't. At all. I only found out because Lydia accidentally forwarded an email chain to the wrong Eric. She called me an hour later, voice tight, saying it was a sensitive legal matter, and that it wasn't personal. Not personal. I confronted my mom. Asked her why. She gave me that weary sigh she always did when I was being emotional. Said, "Well, honey, Lydia has a family to take care of, and Adam's been helping us with some financial stuff. You don't really need much, do you? You're a minimalist, right?" I stared at her, stunned. A minimalist? That's what we're calling being excluded now? That's when I decided I was done. I didn't yell. I didn't protest. I just said, "Okay." Then I walked away. I didn't answer their texts for 2 months. Lydia messaged me about helping her make a slideshow for the anniversary party. I ghosted her. Adam sent a group chat invite for a planning call. I ignored it. And still, they moved forward with the party like I'd never been there at all. That was my proof. If I disappeared, nothing changed. So I showed up. I smiled. I laughed. I ate cake. And then I left. Quietly. 3 days later, I began editing. I had footage they didn't know I had. Audio. Old conversations. Photos. Every family event I had ever filmed but never shared. And I started cutting together something real. Not a tribute. Not a celebration. A reckoning. But I'm getting ahead of myself again. You have to understand what they did. How they made me feel like a ghost at my own family's table. And once you do, once you've really felt what I felt, you'll understand why I did what I did next. Trust me, they never saw it coming. If you've ever sat in a room full of people and felt like you were watching life happen through soundproof glass, you'll understand where I was after Christmas. That night, with the socks still in my duffel bag, I drove straight home, didn't even take off my coat, and just stood in the middle of my apartment until the quiet became unbearable. Then I sat down and cried. Not the cinematic, one tear down the cheek kind. The ugly, chest-heaving, snot-on-your-sleeve kind that makes you feel like you're coming apart in layers. That was my rock bottom. Not because of the socks. Not even because of the trust fund or the seating chart or the fact that my name was barely spoken at the anniversary party. It was because I finally realized something I had been too afraid to admit. They didn't love me the way I loved them. And they never had. That realization cracked something wide open. The week after the party, I moved differently. I wasn't spiteful, just still. I turned my phone to silent and left it that way. I stopped checking the family group chat. I stopped refreshing, hoping someone would reach out to ask if I was okay. Because I wasn't. But they wouldn't have asked anyway. And for the first time, I didn't try to fix that. I had a small client backlog at the time, 2 wedding videos, a promo reel for a local bakery, and a YouTuber who needed his vlogs punched up with better pacing. Normally, I'd turn in the work, send a polite invoice, and wait weeks to get paid. But not this time. I raised my rates. I added rush fees. I cut out the underpaying clients who expected revisions at 2 a.m. and texted like we were best friends. Surprisingly, no one flinched. The wedding couple referred me to 2 more couples. The bakery posted my video and tagged me, something I'd never even asked for before, and within 3 days I had 6 new inquiries. And the YouTuber? He doubled his subscriber count in a month and gave me a permanent contract. It was like the universe had been waiting for me to stop apologizing for existing. I also took some of the money I made and reinvested it. I bought a proper camera, nothing flashy, but good enough that I didn't have to borrow gear anymore. Then I subscribed to a few advanced editing courses. Not because I needed to, but because I wanted to be sharper. Better. For me. One night, I stayed up until 4 a.m. editing a montage for a fashion brand, completely in flow. Music pulsing in my headphones, color grading just right, cuts landing perfectly on beat. When I finished, I sat back and realized something I hadn't felt in months. Pride. Not the kind you fish for from others. The real kind. The kind that comes when no one is looking. And maybe that's when it clicked. All those years I spent chasing a seat at my family's table, I wasn't just asking for recognition. I was asking them to see me so I could see myself. But the truth is, they don't get to define me. Not anymore. I didn't just get stronger, I got sharper. More focused. I started filming for myself again, not just clients. I made a short film, just 5 minutes long, about invisibility. Not the superhero kind. The human kind. The kind you feel when you say something in a group and no one responds. When you sit at the kids' table while your siblings toast each other. When you make a tribute video for your parents and no one asks who made it. I posted it to Vimeo and didn't even share the link. But somehow it got picked up. A small indie festival reached out. They wanted to feature it. Then another. And suddenly, I was getting emails from strangers telling me they saw themselves in my work. One woman wrote, "This made me cry. I didn't know how to explain what I felt for years until I saw this." And that, right there, was the turning point. Not a big, I made it moment. Not a trophy or viral clip or sudden fame. Just the quiet knowledge that I could take pain and make it into something beautiful. That my voice mattered, even if the people closest to me never heard it. I started planning the video not long after that. The one I'd send to my family. It wasn't out of revenge, not at first. It was about truth. A kind of emotional ledger. I went through years of footage, birthdays, holidays, graduations. All the little things I had filmed and cataloged like a ghost archivist. I watched clip after clip, noticing patterns I hadn't seen before. Like how Lydia always spoke over me in group conversations. How Adam made jokes at my expense with that casual cruelty older siblings think is charming. How my parents lit up when Lydia walked into a room, but barely looked up when I did. I isolated audio, slowed down certain frames, found moments where I was just outside the shot, holding the camera. Moments where I handed someone a drink or fixed someone's collar, only to have them walk away without a thank you. There was this one moment, Christmas 3 years ago, where I handed Lydia's daughter a gift. She opened it, squealed, and ran to Lydia saying, "Mommy, thank you." Lydia smiled and said, "Of course, sweetie." I was standing right there. The tag had my name on it. I added it to the timeline. Then I layered in narration, my voice, calm, even, telling the story as it was. No exaggerations. No yelling. Just the truth, laid bare. I titled it The Family I Watched from Afar. I didn't send it right away. I kept it on my desktop for days, then weeks. I thought maybe I'd outgrow the need. Maybe success would be enough. Maybe their silence wouldn't sting so much if I just kept moving forward. But then my mom called. It was a random Tuesday afternoon. I almost didn't pick up, but I did. Eric, she said, her voice bright and distant. We're putting together a little video scrapbook of the anniversary. Lydia said you might have some footage. That was it. Not, hey, we noticed you left early. Not, are you okay? Not, thank you for the video everyone loved. Just a request. Like I was a tool they kept in the garage and remembered when something needed fixing. I said I'd send something over. And 3 days later, I did. No password. No warning. Just a clean, unlisted Vimeo link in the group chat titled, "Here's to the ones who always showed up." Then I turned off my phone, poured myself a glass of wine, and waited. Not for apologies. Not even for validation. Just for the silence to finally break. But what came next wasn't silence at all. And if you thought the party was awkward, just wait until you see how they reacted. I'll tell you everything. I never used to think of myself as someone who could plan revenge. It always sounded too dramatic, too cruel, too unlike me. But then again, I used to think I had a family who saw me. Life has a funny way of changing your definitions. After I sent the video link, I did something I'd never done before. I muted the group chat. Not just hide notifications, but a full 30-day silence. I didn't want to see their reactions. Not yet. I wasn't looking for instant gratification. This wasn't a stunt. It was a mirror. Whether they'd smash it or stare into it was up to them. What I didn't expect, though, was how fast the fallout would begin. It took less than 48 hours before I started hearing from extended family. My cousin Danny texted me, "Dude, just saw the video. Holy crap. Are you okay?" My mom's sister, Aunt Rachel, called and left a voicemail that started with a shaky, "Eric." I didn't realize how bad it was, and ended with her quietly crying before she hung up. Even a family friend I hadn't spoken to since high school sent me a Facebook message, saying she watched the whole thing 3 times and cried every time. Still, not a single word from Lydia. Not Adam. Not my parents. I let it sit. And while they stewed in whatever mixture of guilt, confusion, or self-preservation they were feeling, I got to work. See that video? That wasn't the end. It was just the prologue. The real plan started when I realized how powerful the truth could be when it's finally spoken out loud. Not shouted. Not weaponized. Just laid bare. It makes people squirm in ways even anger can't. Because anger gives people something to fight against. But calm, well-documented truth, that's a blade that cuts inward. I began drafting the second video almost immediately. This one wouldn't be personal. Not in the obvious way. It would be framed as a documentary. A study in family roles and the long-term effects of emotional neglect. I called it The Ghost Seat, being the forgotten child in plain sight. It started as a private project, something cathartic. But the more I wrote, the more I realized it could be something bigger, something that helped more than just me. I interviewed a few friends who had similar stories. I posted an anonymous request in a creative freelancers group I'm part of. Have you ever been the overlooked sibling? Want to share your story on camera? Within days, I had responses. Real, raw, painful experiences. One woman talked about being the caregiver for her dying father while her brothers made all the decisions from hundreds of miles away and got all the credit. A guy told me about being written out of the family because he wasn't as responsible as his sister, despite being the one who bailed his parents out of debt twice. I edited their interviews together, layered in commentary, added clips from my own life where it made sense. But this time, I was strategic. No names. No faces unless they gave permission. No direct references to my family. I wasn't trying to ruin reputations. I was painting a broader picture, one I knew certain people would recognize. And that's when it hit me. They were still planning the follow-up to the anniversary party. My parents' actual anniversary was in April, and the banquet celebration had been held early in February to accommodate everyone's schedules. But there was a second part coming, a more intimate, family-only dinner, hosted at Lydia's house. Just immediate family. Just the 6 of us. Lydia and her husband, Adam and his wife, my parents, and supposedly me. I hadn't responded to the RSVP. The invitation came via group text the week after the video went live. My mom's message was clinical. April 12th, family dinner at Lydia's. Just us. Please confirm if attending. No mention of the video. No hint of emotion. Just straight back to business, like nothing had happened. That was the moment I decided I would attend. Not to talk. Not to scream. Not even to confront. I was going to perform. Not as a character, but as myself. Finally, fully. The person they'd been trying not to see for years. The first step? gathering information. I made a quiet phone call to Aunt Rachel. She'd always been the only one in the extended family who noticed when I wasn't around. She'd send me little birthday cards, ask about my projects. Nothing overbearing, just consistent kindness. When she called after seeing the video, I hadn't picked up. But now I did. "Eric," she said, clearly surprised. "I wasn't sure you'd call back. Can I ask you something?" I said, "Of course. Did you know about the trust fund?" She paused. "I suspected. Your mom mentioned something a while back about making sure Lydia and Adam were taken care of when they're older. I thought it was odd she didn't mention you. But I didn't want to pry." "Thanks," I said. "That helps." That's all I needed from her. Just confirmation that I hadn't imagined it. That the exclusion was real. I wasn't being sensitive. I wasn't blowing things out of proportion. They had made a decision, and they were trying to pretend I didn't notice. I started writing a speech. Not one I'd deliver in person. I wasn't going to stand up at Lydia's table and monologue like it was a courtroom drama. No, this was going to be subtle, quiet, scripted and shot and polished to perfection. I booked a local theater space for a few hours using money from a recent project. I stood on stage alone, under a single spotlight, and filmed myself reading the speech. I shot it with 3 cameras, one wide, one medium, one close. No music, no dramatic lighting tricks. Just words and truth and silence. Here's part of what I said. Sometimes, a family isn't cruel. They're just convenient. They give you exactly enough attention to keep you showing up, but never enough to make you feel seen. You get used to it. You lower your expectations. You laugh when they forget your birthday. You brush it off when they leave your name off the list. You become the quiet one, the helper, the peacekeeper. And eventually, you forget what it felt like to ask for more. I didn't name names. I didn't need to. The final scene? Me placing a chair at a long table. Empty, slightly dusty, a little off-center. I walked around it, looked at it from every angle, then pulled it back and sat in it. Straight-backed. Calm. Fade to black. I named it The Empty Seat. And I scheduled its release for April 12th, 9 p.m., the exact time the family dinner would be winding down. The final step in the setup? A flash drive. The night before the dinner, I made a sleek little case, black leather, custom printed. Inside was a high-speed USB stick with 2 videos, the anniversary reflection and the empty seat. I printed a short note on parchment-style paper, folded it, and slid it into the case. For your records, in case you ever wonder what you missed. I left the flash drive in a padded envelope with their address written in pen. Then I mailed it, not to Lydia, not to Adam, to my parents. Certified, tracked, signed for delivery. So while I showed up at the dinner, calm and collected, wearing a gray blazer and a small smile, I knew the real delivery was already on its way. The kind that didn't need plates or pleasantries or passive-aggressive remarks to land. The dining room was set up just like always, Lydia's perfect little world. Candles, linen napkins, a soft jazz playlist humming in the background. Everyone acted normal. Too normal. I said little. I let them talk. About renovations. About Adam's promotion. About how Lydia's youngest was learning violin. At one point, my mom turned to me and said, "So, are you working on anything new?" I smiled. "Just finishing something up. Should be delivered soon." She nodded like that made sense, completely unaware. And when I left that night, walking to my car in the quiet spring air, I didn't feel bitter. I felt ready. They had no idea what was about to arrive at their doorstep. And the fallout? That's what comes next. 2 days after the family dinner, my phone lit up with a delivery confirmation. Delivered, April 13th, 10:47 a.m. Signed by Lydia. Perfect. I pictured her standing at the door in her spotless yoga pants and passive-aggressive smile, signing for a package she thought was probably another one of her online home decor splurges. I imagined the moment she opened the leather case, read the short note, plugged in the flash drive, and saw her world start to crack, not with drama, but with realization. And then the silence came. No texts, no calls, no emails, not for 3 full days. On the 4th, it began. It started with my mom. She called just after 8 p.m., the same time she used to call me when I was in college and homesick, but didn't want to admit it. Her voice, when I picked up, wasn't soft like it used to be. It was brittle. "Eric," she said, "we saw the videos. Not, we got your package. Not, we watched your work." Just that flat, neutral statement, like a jury foreman announcing a verdict. I figured, I said. She paused. That wasn't fair. You made us look. I didn't let her finish. No, I said calmly. I showed exactly what happened. I didn't twist anything. I didn't even raise my voice. She went quiet. I don't know what to say, she finally whispered. That's the first honest thing you've said to me in years, I replied. I heard her take a shaky breath. Your father, he's very upset. I'm sure he is, I said. But he should know I filmed all of that, because I thought those were happy memories. I thought we were building something together. Turns out I was just documenting my own disappearance. That's when she started crying. Real tears. Quiet ones. And for a moment, I felt a flicker of something, compassion, maybe. But it was brief. Because those tears weren't about me. They were about her guilt. And guilt is not the same as love. She asked if I would come over. I said no. Not angrily. Just plainly. Like it was a weather report. After we hung up, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel cruel. I felt clean. 2 days later, Adam called. Now, his approach was different. He didn't lead with feelings. He led with defense. You made us look like monsters, he snapped. No, I replied, cool as ice. You did that. I just hit play. He laughed, but it wasn't amused. It was that insecure chuckle people do when they realize they're out of ammo. You think you're so clever, don't you? Putting this online like some kind of martyr. It's not online, I said. It's private. Unlisted. Only a few people have the links. He paused. So what then? You just wanted us to feel bad. No, I said. I wanted you to feel anything. Because I spent 31 years wondering if I was invisible or just convenient. And now at least I know. That shut him up. Then came Lydia. Her message came by email. Of course. She needed the distance, the formatting. She needed time to sculpt her words. It was a 5-paragraph essay of corporate PR. Lots of, I'm sorry you felt that way, and we never intended to make you feel excluded. She mentioned how family dynamics are complicated and how I should have brought these feelings to the table privately. I didn't reply. Instead, I sent her a link to the second video. The empty seat. 3 hours later, she replied with just 3 words. I get it. But I don't think she did. Because the fallout didn't stop there. Remember the first video, the anniversary tribute I edited and played in the background during the party? Well, unbeknownst to them, I had also uploaded a clean version online, titled simply A Golden Celebration, 50 Years of Love. I didn't watermark it, didn't brand it, but I listed it publicly on my freelance portfolio site, where future clients could see my work. Turns out, it caught the eye of a mid-sized production company looking to hire freelance editors for a nostalgia documentary series. They reached out, said they loved the pacing and emotional resonance of the piece, and asked if I'd be open to working with them on a paid pilot. They also asked if I had any more personal work they could view. I sent them the empty seat. That got me hired. Just like that, I went from barely scraping by to editing a national docuseries. Full pay, my name in the credits, and creative input. A year-long contract. I even got flown out to Los Angeles for the first round of team meetings. I booked a hotel, walked into a conference room with 20 people, and for the first time in my professional life, nobody asked if this was my little side thing. I was the real deal. And the best part? It happened without them. I didn't owe my success to Lydia's networking or Adam's money or my parents' approval. I built this, frame by frame. But the true revenge? It wasn't the silence that followed. It was what came after. One evening in late June, I got a text from my cousin Danny. Just a screenshot. It was a group message from a family thread I wasn't part of anymore. It read, "Does anyone know a good videographer for Dad's retirement party? Lydia's guy fell through. Budget is tight. Needs to be someone reliable." Danny added a single comment. "Should I suggest Eric?" And the reply, from Lydia, "Let's keep looking." That's when I smiled. Not because I wanted the gig. I didn't. Not anymore. But because they finally realized what it meant to need me, and to know they couldn't ask. After that, things shifted. Holidays passed. I wasn't invited. They stopped pretending I was still part of the loop. My absence became a permanent fixture instead of an awkward glitch. I saw photos of them online sometimes. Group dinners, grandkid birthdays, the usual. Always with a seat where I used to be. A literal empty seat in some shots. Like a placeholder. Like a shadow. And I didn't miss it. I built my own traditions. Thanksgiving with friends who actually listened. Christmas spent traveling, camera in hand, chasing light instead of validation. My apartment became a home, not a waiting room. My life, once defined by what I couldn't get from them, became about what I could give to myself. Forgiveness didn't come quickly. I didn't forgive them because they earned it. I forgave them because I was tired of carrying them in my chest like stones. I let them go. Fully. 1 year later, almost to the day, I got one last message. It was from my dad. Just a short email. No subject line. We watched the videos again last night. I don't think I ever said it, but I'm sorry. For all of it. We failed you. I hope one day you'll let us try again. Love, Dad. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I closed the tab. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because the revenge was never the video. The revenge was never the flash drive. The revenge was living a life so full, so honest, so undeniable, that they couldn't ignore me even when I was gone. And as for that final seat, they can keep it empty. Because I finally found mine, at a table I built myself. And this time, I'm not leaving.